All right, good morning and welcome back. We're working on Gem Wars today. What we're going to do is we're going to start implementing the multiplayer. If you recall, where we left our application was that. Put this thing in a resolution that I want. So if you recall where we last left our app is that we have our identity server up and running. And that's over here. And then also we hooked up a WebAPI to it. We've started our application database context, and we've uploaded all of our game objects here. We also have everything logging. But what we don't have is a TCP server. So let's go ahead and get that going now. So I'm going to create a new project here. And I'm going to call this a class console application in .NET Core C#. We'll put that here in a client. And I'm going to call this a phs.gemwars.tcp server. Now, I wrote a package for this, which we can use. So if I look for tcp.net.server, we can install this NuGet package. And on this, we also have documentation to show how to use it. I probably don't need to use the docs on this. So if I look at my TCP server, we have two different types, an ITCP net server of type auth and an ITCP net server. So let's add a private static ITCP net server auth. And I want to call this a TCP server. And my database uses goods as the unique identifier for user. Okay, so now I want to have a TCP server dot equals a new TCP net server auth of type good. And this is going to pass in a new params TCP server auth. And then a user service, and then a potential TCP handler. And we don't need this TCP handler, but what we do need is the user service. So in my services, I'm going to create a new service here. And I'm going to call this a user service. And now in this one, I can add tcp.net. And we want to inherit from iUser service, which comes out of the PHS networking server services of type T. And we want this to be of a type good. And then we're going to implement my interface. So we have two functions in here that we want to override. And we're going to want to have our data access layer in here. Okay. Now I think this won't work because you have the dependency going the other way. See, it's taking in services here. Okay. And so now to get my ID token, what I want to do is hit my introspection endpoint on the identity server to make sure that that token is valid. So in here, my user service, it's going to be a little bit different than this one. Let's go to the introspection endpoint one. I'm looking at other projects to make sure that I do this correctly. Okay, so when I get this token, we need to issue an HTTP call to the introspection endpoint. So if I look at my identity server for introspection, I should be able to do like an HTTP using a var HTTP client equals new HTTP client. And then I should have a get user get discovery document asynchronous. And that comes from we're going to look for use discovery. So if I look back at the docs here, I'm looking specifically for this. So let's look for identity model in here. This is identity model. And so on this services project, I'm going to add in the identity model. I thought I had identity model on one of these already. Just access token validation. This one says it won't work on core. So ASP.NET Core. And let's do this one here. I'm going to look at the public alley chat project real quick because that might have it. Anyways, you want to say get discovery document asynchronous, which is good. And then you want to have a HTTP client dot introspect token, which is this new request. And we're going to pass in here the address, and that's it. You could do this with a request. So we can do this from my globals. Okay. This is going to return a var discovery disco. Okay. And now my introspection request is going to be a address is my disco dot introspection endpoint. And my token is going to be token. So if my introspect.status code is equal to HTTP status code of OK, then we know that this token is valid for this user. And so down here on my isValid token asynchronous, we can return this. Now, when I look at tcp.net, if I look at my web API, right here, after we get this document, I want to say my HTTP client dot set basic authentication of my globals.api name and globals.api secret. So now what I want to do is we're going to copy this little bit of code here, and I'm going to move it to a protected virtual asynchronous task of an introspection response. And we're going to say introspect token asynchronous and pass in a token here. Okay, and so here I can say var introspect equals await introspect token asynchronous of my token. And then up here, I want to get my introspection, and I want to say if my introspect.http status code is equal to HTTP. Then we want to now get my user ID from my introspect.claims, and we want to get the first or default x, where my x.type is equal to sub. And then what I want to do is if my GUID.tryParse of my user ID, then I want to return the GUID. Otherwise, here I would just want to return GUID.empty. Easy enough for this class. And we're already using an interface there. So now in the TCP server, I can say a new user service which is going to have a data access layer and a globals. And we're going to move this to be a worker thread in just a minute. And so this is going to be a new it's just called automap.createMapper. And then this is going to be my var AWS S3 service equals new AWS S3 service. And here we're going to pass in a var globals equals new globals. And it's going to be a globals dot access key, globals dot access secret, and then a region endpoint of US West 2, which is where my server lives. Now, this data access layer wants this service because it's uploading things. And this service wants to have the data access layer because it's calling the... Actually, it doesn't need this. It's never... calling it. which means that in data access layer or in services under dependencies for package projects, we can remove data access layer and we can go the other direction. Okay. Okay, we're going to remove this, and then I'm going to add in a reference to my, is it the data access layer? Yes, which should have everything. And that's it. And you never need this or this. Okay? So we're going to have a couple of different pieces: connection string authorized, connection string unauthorized. End of line characters is a /r/n, and the port will be 8765. And we're going to say connected to Gem Wars game server. And this is going to say could not connect to Gem Wars game server. And now I'm going to take this whole thing. We're going to remove this project. I'm going to add a new one. And I'm going to call it a worker service. And I'm going to put this in the TCP server. phs gemwars.tcp server. We want it in 3.1 with Docker support for Linux. And then here in my worker, we can paste this. And I want to bring up my TCP server here. Actually, we'll do these two things elsewhere. So I'm going to put this for dependency injection here in programs. So we're going to have a iGlobals here, and then we're going to do a services.register add transient of my iGlobals and then globals. Hey there, great gamer. How are you doing this morning? Welcome back. And then this one, you want to do a services.add singleton of my new TCP server. And on this, we want to add a NuGet package for tcp.net.server. I'm very good today. We're getting started on the multiplayer. We're going to change this to be called phsgemwars.tcp server. And then also here, phsgemwars.tcp server. And then I'm going to remove this. Yeah, I've been sleeping to this game. You've been playing it? That is awesome, Great Gamer. Do you have an Apple or an Android? That's awesome. That makes me very happy to hear. So let's open up this path here. I'm going to remove this project. Dump it in there. We'll add this project back in. I have an Apple. Awesome. I just picked up an Apple so that I can push both games out to it. And then we want to go to my companies, Pixel Horror Studios, projects, Gem Wars, source, backend, clients, TCP server. So back in here now, I can use TCP server and the global variables. And we're going to have this parameters. And then I also want to have a add transient for my iUser service of a GUID called user service. And now when I do this, I want to do a services dot get service if I look over at another project for a second, it wants me to change this a little bit. We're going to add this singleton, which is going to be a iTCP net server auth of a GUID. And then I want to have this go to a service provider. Now I can return this. And this is a service provider dot get service of an iUser service of a GUID. And then you want to do a service provider dot this has two overloads, one for the certificate. So that should be all I need here. There we go. Yeah, loving the game. Awesome. If you want, I can make you a beta tester on TestFlight, as I'm learning all those systems. And so now in the worker, I should just be able to do a iTCP TCP server auth of a GUID called TCP Server, and then we'll add it up here like this. And we want to make this thing run in IIS or just as a worker thread in Windows, not on the Docker container. And then we're going to add this here. And then we're going to do a TCP server dot start asynchronous down here. And we're also going to add in here a TCP server dot events for the on connection event, the message event, and then finally a error event. And if I look at this, it is disposable. So I should be able to do a public override dispose. And we can do this. And then I can do a TCP server.stop asynchronous. And we're going to wait on that task to complete. And then I want to do a, that's it. Okay. So here are 3 methods now that we're worried about. So now what I can do is make these a protected virtual asynchronous. Not asynchronous yet. And all I want to do here is a console.writeLine of my args.message, and then a return task.completed task. We're going to do the same thing for here. And then the last one is here. Like that. And that should be it. So let's see if this server is working. Okay, we're going to run it. Tells me that data access layer doesn't exist, which is fine. Same with that one. And it's probably going to tell me I need to fix my globals, which I can no longer display on screen. Yep. And that's saying that this project doesn't exist, which it doesn't because I moved it. And now it's already got the introspection endpoint in there. So now we're going to give it a run. Well, it doesn't look like it ever started this. Or that it's being awaited. If I look at tcp.net, start async doesn't await. And then you're running these. So I'm a little confused why that didn't execute farther. So let's try it again. Oh, it's because we never did a called I deleted the code when I didn't need to. And it's add hosted service of my TCP server worker. And we'll reload it. There we go. Now it's going to start. Perfect. It's asking to allow access. And that should be good. And now we should have a server running. Okay, it gave me a Stack Overflow on the dispose. I wonder if I can just do it like that. And then if I look at the tcp.net, when I'm stopping a service, when I'm looking at my dispose, it calls a stop asynchronous. And then sets it to null. Which means that I don't need to call it a second time here. Interesting. So that time the dispose worked on the user service, but I don't have anything to dispose. So let's try it again. And now it's working correctly. So the next thing that I want to do is look at these introspection endpoints. So over in GemWars, we're going to use async await technology now. So I'm going to create a new script type called TCP. And I'm going to make a new class in here called TCP Manager. We can make it static because there's only one. And what I want to have in here now is a TCP Client class. I'm going to call it TCP Client. It's not a script. It doesn't have anything, but I can't call it TCP Client because that's already being used, right? No, it'll be okay like this. And we'll make this a public class. And what I want to have on here is a constructor, which is going to have a string for my access token. And then it's got some parameters on it, which is a string URI, int port, string end of line characters, and a bool is SSL. So down here, I'm going to add a new class called TCP Client Parameters. And in here, we can add a string for the URI, an int for the port, a string for the end of line characters, a bool for is SSL, and a string for access token. Okay, and now that I have that, what I want to do is I want to have a new function here called create SSL connection. And then we have another one which is called create connection. Now I want this to be in a new function here called a public virtual asynchronous task connect asynchronous. And we're going to say if my parameters dot is SSL, then we're going to do a await create SSL connection. Otherwise, we're going to do await create connection. And we'll put this whole thing inside of a try catch. And now what I want to do is I want to have a bool which is called is client running. And right here we're going to set it to true. So now what I want to do is if my string is not null or white space of my parameters.access token, now what we want to do is we want to immediately write that to my connection. And we want to pass in here the OAuth. And then we want to do the parameters.access token. We'll define connection in just a moment. And then synchronously, we need to have our next function, which is called protected virtual asynchronous task called start listening for messages asynchronous. And we're doing that so that the thread stays open. This is run synchronously, so the UI, so the thread does not wait at 100% for the next message. And if you catch, you're going to do is client running equals false. We're going to add an event handler in here. And I'm going to say it's called a error event args. And I want this to inherit from my base args. And I want to add in here a string for the message and a exception for the exception. And then over here I can have a public event game event handler of my error event args. We're going to call this error event. Now, do I want this to be asynchronous? Yes. Game event handler asynchronous. Like that. And so now down here, I can have my exception, and we can do a await fire. We're going to say if we're going to add a new function called a protected virtual asynchronous task called fire error event asynchronous, and we're going to pass in the sender and the error event args. And now we can say if my error event does not equal to null, then I can do a wait my error event, and we'll do an invoke of the sender and the args. So this is going to be a fire event handler of this and a new error event. And the exception is ex. The message is ex.message. So let's take a look at what a connection is. Down here, I want to have a new class called connection. And in this, we want to have a TCP client. And this is why I didn't want to call it this. And I'm going to call this my client. And then we're going to have a stream reader called a reader. And then a stream writer called a writer. And so up here we can have a protected connection called connection. These parameters are read-only. Okay. And that looks good for the connect. So now I want to do a create connection here. And so this is going to establish the remote endpoint for the socket. So I'm going to say service point manager dot security protocol is going to be TLS or TLS.11 or TLS.12. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my var client equals new TCP client of my parameters.uri and my parameters.port. I want to set my receive timeout limit to be 20 seconds. And then we're going to create the reader, which is a new stream reader of my client.getStream. And then we're also going to have a writer, which is a new stream writer, which is going to be a client.getStream. And I want to add on that one that we want it to auto flush. And we want to set my new line to my parameters dot end of line characters. And then we're going to create a new connection here. And we're going to set my client to be my client, my reader to be my reader, and my writer to be my writer. That's it. So this is actually a void. Now my SSL connection is almost the same thing, except for here we're going to have an SSL stream, which is a new SSL stream of my parameters.uri and my parameters.port. And then I want to do authenticate as client, which is my parameters.uri. And my parameters.port. This is actually a client.getStream. Like that. And that's the difference. We want this to be another try catch. Like that. We'll do that also up here. And then all this, we want to add the try catch around it. Like that. Okay, there's no await anymore on these. We actually want these to percolate up. We don't need all that. The errors, I mean. So that way, if you're not authenticated, it'll throw an error and get handled up here as a events. Okay. And now we're going to have my start listening for connection messages asynchronous. So we're going to do this in a while statement. While my is client is running and my connection does not equal to null, then I want to get my message. So I'm going to do this a little differently. If my message reader peak dot length is greater than 0, then we're going to get my message here. I don't know if I'm going to leave that. We'll see. So if my string dot is null or white space of my message is false, now what I want to do is I want to have it digest the ping. We'll have to test this a little bit, okay? So if my message.trim.toLower is equal to ping, then I want to await something. Otherwise, we're going to do a fire event asynchronous here. And we're going to add an exception here. And I want to do a await fire event, which is going to be my this and my new event args, which is going to pass in the exception and the message. And then we want to do a await disconnect asynchronous. So up here, I want to add a public virtual void called disconnect asynchronous. Okay. We're going to add another event here called message event args. And we'll just leave it like that for now because we don't necessarily know what's coming back from the server. So up here, let's add our new event here for a message event called message event args. And then down here, we want to say fire message event asynchronous and a message event args. And you're going to pass in this and then a new args, which is going to be a message equals message. Okay, we're going to have another one which is going to be called public virtual asynchronous task of a bool called send to server asynchronous as a string message. And what I want to do is a try catch. And I want to say if my connection does not equal to null and my client connection dot client is connected. Then I want to do an await connection dot writer dot write line asynchronous of my message. When I look at my message event args, I want to have a new public enum message event type, which is going to have incoming or outgoing. And this is going to be outgoing. And the message is going to be message. And then you want to return true. Otherwise, you want to have an exception here. And we're going to await on my fire error event and pass in a new event args with the exception, the message, and then we're going to do a disconnect asynchronous and finally return false if we get all the way through. Okay, the last function we need to have is a disconnect. And so in this, we want to have another try catch. And I want to say if my connection does not equal to null. Now we're going to check each one of these parameters. So if my connection dot writer does not equal to null, then I want to do a connection dot writer dot dispose. If my connection dot reader does not equal to null, then I want to do a connection dot reader dot dispose. And then I want to say if my connection dot client does not equal to null, then I'm going to do a connection dot client dot disclose and then disconnect or dispose. And then I want to fire an event here because we want to have another type here, which is called a connection event args. And you're going to have this as a connection event args, which is going to have a connection event type, which is going to be called connected and disconnected. And then we'll add the connection event down here. Okay, fire connection event. We'll pass in this, and all we're going to have is this disconnected. If we get an exception, then we want to do a await fire error events of this, and then a new event errors, which is going to have the exception and a message. Okay, we're going to make a new folder in here called models. And I'm going to drag in this connection class and parameters class. And add these to the namespace. Models. So I'm going to call this a TCP connection. And we're going to call this parameters, just nice and simple. I think that's done. Oh, wait. You haven't done your connection event. Also down here, when you're doing your start listening, we want to do an await send to server, which is a Pong. So here what I want to do is I want to make a new event. I want to make a new event here where it's a await fire connection event, which is going to be connected. And that's going to be if my message is equal to what I set in the front end or the back end. Which is this, connected to GemWars server. And that's it. We're going to want to look at this peak and at this message. And over on the manager now, I want to have a private static TCP connection called TCP connection. And we're going to have a public virtual asynchronous task called start. And we're going to connect here after I do a TCP connection equals new TCP connection, which is going to require these parameters. My access token is something we're going to pass in. My end of line characters was this. My is SSL was false. My port is 8765. My URI is localhost. And then you're going to set my events. Okay. And then we're going to start this. Now, I want this to be a class. That's not a static. I don't need it as a game object in the game. So let's say that the I do want it to dispose correctly, so we'll make it a base scriptable object. No, we're going to make it a base mono behavior. And then I want to have a dispose, which is going to be a this. And if my TCP connection does not equal to null, then we're going to do this stuff, and then do TCP connection equals dot dispose. If I look at TCP connection, I should have had a dispose on that. So we're going to add in here a public virtual void called dispose. Hey, D-Wash Resta. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to pop them into the chat. And in the dispose, I want to do a disconnect asynchronous.await and then a base.dispose. But I want this to be a disposable. And we can have that controlled by the manager, which is a base game manager. And so that way when we do the start, protected virtual void called start, I want to do a singleton of itself. That's it. And then in the singleton, you have a destroy on scene change and set that to false. Okay? We're going to say that this is called start connection. And all I want to do here is a debug.log args.connection event type .toString. And we can remove this diagnostics because we want this to be in the Unity engine. We want this one to be the error message. And we want this one to be the message. And then we're going to do a return task.completed task. So now on your global manager, let's move TCP into mono behaviors. So in my global manager, I want this to be a new TCP manager called TCP manager. And we want this to get the payload. And when we get the payload here, I want to check if new player here and all that. If not, start TCP connection. And then what I want to do is a TCP manager.start connection. And we're going to pass in my HTTP manager.access token. Token.access code. We're going to change this to be start asynchronous, start connection asynchronous, and then we'll await on it. And in access token here, we need this to be a static. Okay. So let's test it. We're going to do a task.run to get the payload. When that's done, we should hit our TCP server. Just do a console.readline. Give it a run. Okay, it's loaded the Swagger and the back end. And the service should also be running. Maybe I didn't set it to run. I didn't. So let's fix that. Okay, there's the API. There's the back end. The server should be running here. Why didn't this start? That was weird. Let me try this again. So it is running, which is right. It should output this stuff. Good. We'll run it now from Unity. I'm going to make a new class here called TCP Manager. And we'll add the TCP Manager script onto it and drag that onto global. We'll give it a run. There we go. So it's working. We're connected to the server. We're first going to check to see if that token is valid. So we set our auth. We're going to get our introspect endpoint, which says it's good. And we have my claims, which is good. We have the sub, which is what I wanted. And then it says, well, it was close. Cannot read from a closed text reader. So this thing is continuously spitting out errors and disconnected. So in my connection, when we disconnect here, I want to say, and my connection writer because that should work, and then fired my disconnected. This is getting called in 3 places: on dispose, on send to server, so we're going to move the try catch out. And then here I want to say, is client running equals false. And then when you disconnect, you want to say connection is equal to null. Let's try it again. The backend should still be running. It is. Let it run. We get my endpoint. We get it a second time. We check to see it's okay. And we return the GUID here. And now we're connected. But the reader sets it here. Cannot read from a closed reader on an error event. So is it failing because it's awaiting and it's already been, well, and then it's disconnecting. We don't necessarily need this. I think that's what it is. Let's try it one more time. Okay, we're good. We auth in. We're connected. We're disconnected. Still here. So let's see what's going on here when this is being called. Okay, so we're going to attach this to Unity. Give it a second to update. In my user service, is valid asynchronous is being called. So you're introspecting twice here. So I think you can do if your user ID is not equal to a default of your T. Oh, crap. So I'm doing this twice because I'm going to change this to be a introspect token. We'll do this in a little bit. Okay, here, we'll just do this networking. Oh, it's in PHS network. We'll leave it for now because it's a lot of layers deep, but we'll fix that later. So now I'll run it. We should attach to Unity. There we go. So when I look at this peak, it's going to have nothing. Oh, what is the peak? So we got a connected to GemWar server. That's perfect. So yeah, this is just running open. Now the alternative would be this one we can move up here. So now it's like that, and then we have an else if that. Otherwise, we're going to fire the event. Like that. Okay, let's try it again. And then what I want to do is I'm going to start sending some messages across. I want to make sure I'm receiving them on both sides. And then we're going to start to build out our game objects and our actions, so that way we can have multiplayer for this game. We do need this one and then this one here for this to work. Run it. Give it a second to reload. Come on, computer. Let me stop this, stop that, and then run this again. And I don't need to disconnect it every time. Come on, computer. Well, I know how to fix that. We could do a protected, we'll just call it a private introspect response. And then what I want to do is, oh, this is on the back end, so I can stop it. I want to set this one here. And then I want to say, if my intro respect is not equal to null and the status code is that, and then we'll just get the claims like that. Like that. Okay. Start the back end. Jump into Unity. Should be good to go now. There we go. There we go. Everything is running. Did I lose the... Oh, there we go. Let's try it again. It's taking a second because it's working on the back end here. There we go. Or to give me debugging. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that is the way we want it. We don't want peak because otherwise it's going to be running it wide open. Okay, so now when I stop it, my writer, my reader, my client, we disconnect it. And that disposed nicely. So I think that's fixed now. Okay. So what I want to do is we're going to test something very quickly. So in GemWars, I want to look at my TCP connection here. Let me think about that for a little while. And what I want to do is we're going to add a new enumerator in here. And I'm going to say protected virtual enumerator called message coroutine. And what I want to do here is if my TCP connection does not equal to null and my TCP connection dot is connected. So let's add that in here. Public virtual bool, nope, just public bool is connected. And all you're going to do is if my connection does not equal to null and my connection dot client does not equal to null and my connection dot client dot connected, and you're just going to say return that. Then we're going to do a TCP connection dot send message to server asynchronous. And we're going to add up here a private bool is message event is message sending. We're going to make this one like that. Then here we're going to do a task.run. Of this. And I'm going to say is message sending equals true. And we're going to say if and it is not is message sending. And then here we're going to await this. And I'm going to pass in a date. We'll just do a GUID.newGUID.toString. We're going to do this while it's like this. We're going to say while is coroutine running. And here you're going to say is coroutine running equals true. And then you're going to send it. And then I want to say is message sending equals false. Okay? And then down here I want to do a yield return wait for seconds 1. And so on your connection event, if it's connected, I want to say start coroutine message coroutine. And if it disconnects, you want to do a is coroutine running. No, we'll do that at the dispose. And then up here, we're going to have a private coroutine called coroutine. We'll call it the message coroutine. So when you do this, you don't have a ping service in there yet, do you? Oh, the ping service is already included with tcp.net. So while this does not equal to null, I just want to do a thread.sleep for 100 milliseconds. That's it. That should do it. So let's try it again. Hey, Fallen Hope. How are you doing? Welcome, man. It's good to have you with us. This time I don't think I need the debugger. We'll give it a run. Oops. Let's go ahead and that should all be good. We'll just run this and watch over here. So I should see my TCP manager. It says is instructors in field initializers will be executed from the loading thread when loading a scene. So what it wants me to do we're going to change this to be a static class. We'll move this coroutine somewhere else. Okay. This one we're going to say public virtual string send message. Which is going to be a string with the message. And then you're going to say that this is a connection, TCP connection dot send to server asynchronous the message. And so you're going to do this as a asynchronous task, like that. And so now on the global manager, we're going to add this coroutine in, just temporarily. And this needs to be a I enumerator. In this, we want to have a public bool called isConnected, and you want to do a if my connection does not equal to null, then you want to do a return TCP connection dot isConnected. Otherwise, you just want to return false. Okay, up here we want these three things. Okay. This is TCP while my TCP manager is connected. And the message is not sending. And you'll send this one. TCP manager.send message asynchronous. And then wait for a second. And this we're going to do as a task.run asynchronous. Okay. And that also means that this is now TCP manager.start connection asynchronous. And then in my dispose, I want to do this stuff. Like that. And that's not true because you can do a TCP manager.disconnect So up here, we'll do this up here as a disconnect TCP connection dot disconnect asynchronous. We'll await on that. So if it is connected, then we can do this. Hey, Sound of Gaming, welcome to the channel. How are you doing today? That looks good. So we're going to say that this is called stop connection asynchronous. And then we can do this coroutine just when we start down here. I got my original name back. I used to be Did You Hear Sound? I actually had a few name changes. I probably won't change more because Sound of Gaming is my best one. Yeah, that's the one that I remember you under the most. Okay, we'll shut that down. Try it again. Says that over here we want to do a stop connection asynchronous, and we'll wait for that. I see you're making more progress on Gem Wars. Yeah, have you played the demo? We're adding the multiplayer right now, or at least the base networking for it. We need to get rid of this. Try it again. Connected. Every 1 second, I'm expecting it to be sending messages. Oh, I don't have the bot running at the moment. Here, let me send you the link. I should have the bot running. Come on, computer. Okay, so it's not. Let's try it again and watch what's happening. Okay, we're going to read our line. which works. Oh, my site is down? Oh, man. Let me fix that real quick. I thought I checked everything right before the stream. I wonder what happened. Okay, it should be restarting right now. No, it's something with one of my containers. Like an Nginx container is misconfigured or something. It should only take another minute before it comes back. So anyways, back over here. I never saw this start the thread. Never seemed to even get there. Right here, it's like it never got past this. Let's try it again. So it says that it started it. So is it because it's on another thread? So let's have a new private bool start coroutine. Nah, well, let's do it a different way. Let's just add this to here. There it goes. Yeah. So it is definitely like my main Nginx container or something. Okay, so that's running now. We're connected. We're sending these. And you can see I'm receiving them on the server side. So this is great. It's working. If the server crashes, it should shut down gracefully. It did. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go jump to my Jira board. It seems like I caused a lockup here, which is this. or rather, it's this. And then up here you could say coroutine message coroutine equals null. Let's do it another way. We'll just do this for true. And then down here, if my message coroutine does not equal to null, then I want to do a stop coroutine of my message coroutine. Stop connection has an await on it. So we want to do a try and a catch on this. Sound of Gaming says I beat the AI. Nicely done. If you have any feedback on the game, let me know, because I'm trying to add all the rest of the kit items that people could want. Okay, we're going to need to close this and then reopen it. Awesome. Thank you, man. Where's the disconnect asynchronous? Close, not dispose. Let's do this one first, always. Okay, let's try it again. Did it open? No, not yet. I'm going to jump over here into the Jira real quick and open my project. And we're working on this. 16. So I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to say add multiple players serializing to TCP server. And then also I want to change the we're going to say this add TCP connection from Unity and C# server. Okay, that looks good. I think it's my board, not my cable. That's interesting. That's real interesting. I might need to switch to... I got to think about that. Okay. And so now in the game, I'm going to start the back end. It's already going. Oh, not all of it, though. Okay, that's all running. We're going to start the back end, or the client, pardon me. Okay, it's now connected and sending things across the pipe. This time I wanted to close it from here. We should see this stop. It says disconnected, and then I should be able to stop. So now it's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit this. And I need to add a couple of things here to the git ignore. Down here, under clients, I want to add another one for TCP Server. Okay. Looks like it's got something in here from services. Which maybe I'm already tracking or something. Yeah, I am. So let's remove these ones. We'll change this to be stop tracking. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to stage everything else. And I'm going to say added TCP connections and creating entities and creating data transfer objects. And we're going to say my time here was 2 hours and my comment is this. Okay, let's go ahead and I swear I changed this cable. That is so bizarre. I think it's my board. That sucks. Anyways, let's go ahead and commit this out. Push this out here. Add it to development. Okay, in development, we can get rid of all of these files. Let's just get rid of these files here and merge in 16. Looks like we're fighting over the app. That's great, dude. You liking it? Okay, let me see here. We can discard these and then merge in our 16. And now I can push this out. And we can reopen that in here. And we'll open the back end again. And now what I want to do is That's fine here. And on this side, and then what I want to do is we're going to scrap this stuff because I know it's working now. Like that. Okay, and now I'm going to just make that one little change here, and I'm going to say remove test scripts. And then back over here in Jira, I can say that this is done. So I've been going for like 2 hours. I need to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to add our data transfer objects for games, rounds, draws, matches. We're going to be submitting those over TCP. We're going to be writing custom deserializers for that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay with me. I'll be back in like 15 minutes. If you have any questions, make sure you pop them into the chat. Also, we got a Discord, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com. That's another place to chat. And I put all the videos up at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. I'll see you guys very, very, very soon. Thank you.